Hello everybody, my name is Lionel, and welcome to Art Without Blood. This is another horror visual novel, and I actually really love the art style of this. Let's get into it. Behind every exquisite thing that existed, there was something tragic. What is my name? My name is Lionel. Nice to meet you. My name is Lionel. I don't go to art galleries as much as I should. It's one of the things to see a piece of art on a screen or in a book. But when you go in person, it's as if you can feel the textures of marble and acrylic and oil with your eyes. I never found the time to go when the weather was nice enough to motivate me to leave the house. When the day was just cold enough to drink hot chocolate, but not quite frigid enough to bring out our winter coats, I finally went out. The joy of going to an art gallery alone is that no one is pushing you to go to a certain place. I can stand and look at any piece of art you want for as long as I desire. And the atmosphere, it clears your head. Everyone is quiet to be respectful of each other's time, examining works of beauty. I chose a spot in a dimmer room with smaller paintings hanging all around. Other benches were crowded, but mine was empty. All there was to do was bask in the atmosphere. There was a small group making minimal conversation that were too muddled to eavesdrop on. My legs hurt. I eyed a bench facing some paintings nearby. There are never empty seats. I ran for the spot as much as one could run in the art gallery, weaving a sigh of relief. I brushed myself off and rubbed at the bones in my wrists. I looked to my sides. To my left was a couple standing next to the bench, looking from their phones to pieces scattered on the walls, pointing at the smaller ones. To my right, hello, was another person, alone. They were fixated on the painting in front of us, expression pensive. Making themselves comfortable, crossing their legs with their right hand in front of their lips, with the left hand supporting the elbow underneath. Whatever they were wearing didn't seem typical for a patron of the gallery. What do you think of it? They were still observing the painting, only tilting their head in my direction. Did they notice I was looking? I pretended not to hear them and looked away. Are you truly someone who is more interested in the people at the gallery than the art on the walls? I wasn't there. Yeah, you were. I don't mind. Oh, okay. This is a BART option. Pressing it will have your MC make a snide or sarcastic. Using a BART button may give you more information about situations and characters, or it could kill you. Wait, what? If you would be so kind, will you answer my question? What do you think of it? I looked in front of us. The Storm by Pierre-Auguste Comte is a piece with theorized origins of movement and love, and bursts of light in the darkness that bounces off every surface of fabric and flesh. There isn't a lot known about Comte's personal life. He focused mainly on portraits, even though his most recognizable pieces today are of fantasy figures in embrace. He died at 46, married a sculptor's daughter. But my question to you is this: do you see the love in this piece? It's really hard to tell, but I guess, yeah, I mean, I can see the love there. Yeah, it's quite obvious because like a lot of the light is being shed on the woman. There's also the whole deal where like the other person is covering her with the cloth. I'm not sure what that is. So yeah, I see it. Really? Where? In the way he looks at her with soft eyes and a cheery smile. Maybe the cloth they're holding was an attempt at a picnic blanket, or maybe it was a shawl to cover his chest. He'll be exposed to the cold of the rain. He will catch a cold. But he doesn't want her wet, because it will ruin her beauty. She's not focused on him, but her arm is draped over him. She trusts him. Good enough for an answer? I suppose. Are you a romantic, Lionel? Well, I guess I am. I can tell in the way you talk and the way your face softens when pondering these things. It's refreshing to see. You're not flirting with me, are you? No. Even if I spontaneously had these feelings, why would I play with you that way the second I met you? I'm just curious about the thoughts of other patrons. I like this one, but it's not my favorite by Comte. What's your favorite then? Ophelia, or Pause for Thought. It pictures the tragic figure from Shakespeare's play in a white dress with blue sleeves and accents. Are you talking about the one where she's down by the river? Her fingers pinch at a page, halfway through flipping a book. Oh, but instead of watching the book in front of her, she looks up from her novel with an expression that reads like she knows she's being perceived. She knows her fate, to die with her skin turning blue in the river's clear water over heartbreak. Does she know? Does she care? It's beautiful, the way she stares daggers into us to pry our thoughts open. But who am I to ramble on like you care? They brushed some hair out of their face and smiled. My name is Aaron. It's a pleasure to meet you, love. Lionel. I like that. You don't mind if I accompany you, do you? Part of me wanted to resist. They were only a stranger, but with another look, their eyes softened, with their eyebrows knitted and their hands folded in their lap. Sure, you can. The words came out of my mouth as if they were pulled by a string by hands that were not my own. Aaron stood up and clapped their hands, leaning to one side with grace. Wonderful, really, it is. Are we done looking at this one, dear? I looked over to the storm once more, at the cracks in the painting from age and exposure, all the reflections of light on the strokes, at the figures and whatever their motivations were. I believe I'm done. Yeah. They waved at me with a beckon of their hands, and I stood up, almost at command. Where would you like to go? Have you been here before? A few times, yeah, but I never have enough time to explore every exhibit and its contents. Not all in one day, maybe, if you want to give the same attention to everything. But if you come enough and have enough time, you can become acquainted with it, just like with anything else. But who has the free time? I have more than enough. We walked past landscapes on waterfronts and in fields, past women naked, covered in doves and vines, and scrapped together fabrics to hide their shame. Past kings with cut throats and queens on their knees with tears gracing the corners of their eyes. If you don't have the time to come often, then what do you do and why are you here? Even though we passed by pieces I wanted to look at, as soon as they started talking, I felt myself continuing to move, giving only brief glances rather than long ponderings. You want to know about me? No, I want nothing to do with you. That was a joke, love. Is it wrong to want to know my companions in a gallery? No, it isn't. They smiled and continued weaving through the crowd until we reached a long hallway, painted in dark blue. Openings to all sorts of galleries facilitated guests in and out. They disappeared from my sight. Did they ditch me? What an asshole! I turned the left down the hallway, past paintings of men with eyes frozen in fear and sculptures of women on the verge of tears, until I stopped. A painting of a peasant woman in tattered clothes and bare feet, staring off at something unknown. In the thick of brush and the stones of a cottage are three figures, each felt equally haunting to me. Angels and knights in armor, bodies dangling as if hanging from a tree. Aaron was standing in front of it, next to a woman who looked beautiful. Dark eyes and hair that, despite having unkempt parts, seemed to fit with her ghostly aura. I stood behind, but between them, listening for a moment. They're saints, here to deliver Joan of Arc a message. The one in the armor is Michael, the Archangel. Some worshippers call him Saint Michael. He's the protector of the Jewish people. In Christian traditions, he battled Satan. And supposedly, he's the commander of God's army. But he's kind of a pompous asshole. You didn't hear that from me. If I didn't know that, I'd say she was scared of something following her. Angels singing to drag her into the clouds while being haunted by a warrior's corpse. What do you think? She stared straight at the painting with no emotion on her face. You too, Lionel. They haven't even turned to meet my face, and yet they knew it was me. You left me behind. You were just too slow, love. They turned their head to fully look at the woman to their side. Miss? She continued staring, mouth open in what could be a small gasp if any sound came from it. Her hand clutched onto the strap of her purse. Are you alright? It's looking at me. My eyes fixated on the painting again. Joan is looking into the distance, way past the viewer, the angels glance over her form. They're all looking at me, staring into me and making note of every part, scoffing. Her own eyes went wide, eyebrows turned from surprise to concern, starting to descend. The pressure. Aaron takes a step back from the woman, whose knees begin to wobble in weakness. Veins pricked at her eyes with a sickly red. She hadn't blinked the entire time. Hairs started forming in her eyes to give them moisture, but that didn't seem like enough to restore their gloss. They grabbed my shoulder and pulled me back and away from her. How fascinating. Let her run her course. What does that mean? Stop looking at me! She screamed at a high pitch enough to break glass, sharp as a blade that could cut through cloth. Her whole body shuddered, folding into itself as if it wanted to return to its fetal position. The head was up, staring directly at Joan. I look around at the rest of the patrons in this hall of the gallery. They all had stopped, staring without features at a girl, bright sclera and dark irises that contrasted against the emptiness of the once decorated faces. Even though they should be facing her, I could see each of the eyes growing out from the back of the heads. Too big for faces, too close for human features. I reached up to feel my cheeks, my nose, my lips, relieved that they were all still there. Even so, I couldn't find myself able to move. The woman stood up, still focused. She reached into her bag with one hand and pulled out a set of car keys. She leapt to the painting, keys in one hand, scratching at Joan's eyes, hoping to rip the canvas and destroy the artwork. She was crying still, unable to blink, sinews in her arms from trying to force her strength into cutting the artwork with her keys. There was a sound next to me. In Aaron's left hand was a knife, dark as obsidian. The woman heard as well, and her companion left the painting for the first time and fell on my companion. She screamed louder. "You're doing this! I see them! An infinite amount of eyes, and yet two never blink at the same time!" She jumped at Aaron, who dodged her move by simply stepping to the side. Instead, she went for me, and I was not fast enough. She slashed across my arms, somehow managing to break into my skin, causing them to bleed. Shit! She threw her bag off for mobility, ready to strike again. And I fell back. Aaron narrowed their eyes and threw themselves at her. Tackled to the floor, with the other on top of her, she struggled like an injured bird, flailing her arms and her legs, trying to slash any part she could. Then they all buckled into uncomfortable positions, a leg half up, an arm with its wrists crunched under boots. Her screams nearly broke my eardrums. Until they were gone, replaced by gargling and a fresh scent of iron, which was almost putrid. I felt sick as soon as I saw her, with a fine line across her neck that oozed liquid like a waterfall. I have to get this suit cleaned again. Aaron stood up, face splattered in blood. The expression turned from sour to sweet as they laid their eyes on me. Sorry, darling. Normally they don't become hostile to others. Though I suppose it's because I'm normally the only conscious one in these situations. They walked over to the paintings, holding their hand right in front of the holes that were slashed through the canvas. Oh, god damn! She must have used all her strength at this, like a dying animal using its last breath to fight. And with that, Jules Bastien Lepage's most famous work is ruined. I'll have to fix it. What just happened? I couldn't explain it to you now, love. Do you know what it's like having hundreds of eyes on you, tearing you apart from the inside? They reached out and touched my arm. She scratched at you. Does it hurt? Wait, what? I looked at my arm. I was bleeding, but it wasn't very much. If anything, it stings. They kneeled down in front of me and grabbed my arm, examining it, whispering an apology for grabbing it so suddenly. I'll deal with this, okay? Aaron's fingers circled around my wound before the thumb begins collecting the blood that had just started to dry. Ew! I tried pulling back, but they grabbed at my other arm, gripped tight around my wrist. Stay still. They raised their blood-covered thumb to my forehead. A cold sensation brushed my skin as they started painting, Something. A symbol? A letter? I didn't have time to think about it. I was feeling sleepy. Don't worry about it, love. I'll take good care of you. I couldn't feel my limbs, or my eyes, or anything. My eyes were closed, projecting darkness into my vision. The only part of me that were still working were my ears. There was an odd record playing in the distance, but any lyrics could not be discerned. Voices could, though, and the sounds of wetness, of metal tools, of shuffling, and clothes moving with bodies. They've never done that? I was finally able to open my eyes, adjusting to the light. 2 figures surrounded a bed, talking amongst themselves. I only recognized one. No, because it's been a very long time since where they were, 2 people in the area of effect once the spiral had started. When was the last time? Claude. He wasn't involved, thankfully. You know how absorbed in his craft he was. I don't, because I had more important matters when you were in Italy at the time. Music to learn, men to seduce. You wound me, Genesis. Nevertheless, it was a woman and a man. I don't remember what they were doing there. Maybe they'd come just to observe. But the woman was the one who went ballistic, killing her companion before stabbing herself in the throat. Was that the one with the palette knife? Yes, we had left it out, and she unfortunately fell into madness and ripped her husband's face apart. Was that canvas ruined as well? Yes, but I was able to repair it, and one noticed that it had been slashed apart. Damn, not even I noticed. Because I'm good at what I do. Aaron put a hand on the shoulders of the unknown figure and whispered something to them. The stranger nodded, with a concerned look on their face, and soon left the room. Aaron took longer, staring at whatever was on the bed before starting to walk off. Turning the head to look in my direction, I held my breath. If I could hold it any more than I already was. They did nothing except smile as they walked by. And I had never felt so relieved. I slowly crawled out of my bed, blankets and sheets underneath, and found myself standing. My knees wobbled, and I had to grip the bed frame so I would not fall. There were 2 other beds in the room. One of them was empty. The other, with a spotlight on it, that was bright enough to give the whole room a glow, had something in it, but it was covered with a sheet. There was enough of a signal to not try and investigate. The room felt sterile. Not in a hospital sterile kind of way, but in the air, it felt like nothing. There was a small bookshelf under the painting between 2 beds. 2 cabinets side by side with various objects, locked behind glass. Under another painting was a desk and chair with books and papers scattered atop it. Did I want to look at anything? I guess we'll investigate. Let's look at the bookshelf. The bookshelf was lined with titles I had never heard of. Some of them were homemade books, word scribbled on the spines. On top of it was a stack of papers, music sheet with handwritten notes. It looked like they had been erased and rewritten over and over again. The papers had a strong smell of bourbon on them. You don't want to look at anything? Let's check the cabinets. I kneeled down to look at the cabinets. One was locked shut, filled with what seemed to be medication. None of them were pill bottles. Rather, they were all glass with labels of tape or paper stuck on the fronts. I didn't recognize any of the pills or liquids. The others were unlocked, filled with bigger jars. I opened it and grabbed the first bottle I found. Ew! If it were not glass, I would have dropped it immediately. Inside it had eyeballs, or at least they looked like them. Upon closer inspection, they had a glossy finish to them. They were also glass, but why were these here? I put the bottles back and quickly closed the cabinet. No more of that. My search was stopped in its tracks by the sound of footsteps outside. I froze in place, eyes to the door, the doorknob slowly turning. And, oh! Didn't think you'd be awake. If you don't mind, let me just... He walked past me and to the papers which sat on the bookshelf where he was standing earlier. Was going to perform these, but I left them here. Sorry about that. I didn't wake you, did I? I've been up for a while. I saw you 2 talking earlier. That's why they had us leave, huh? Whatever. Is something wrong? Nah. So he had grabbed what he wanted. His eyes did not leave me, as if I was keeping him in place. So the papers. He didn't give me a good explanation. Or really any explanation. just a shuffle of words. I'm writing a new composition for a band I'm in. Oh, that's cool! More like a one-man group, I guess. I'm going for a deeper effect with my music. I've been stumped on what'll make a perfect headbanger. Maybe I'll give you a listen later. Genesis opened the door and looked in both directions before... Ow! He grabbed my wrist and immediately started dragging me out of the room and into the hall. I don't think the two of them will get mad if I give you a little break. Wait, what? There was also a song playing, something drowned out, like a haunted ballroom with no occupants. The hallway felt cold, lifeless. We passed endless doors with various labels next to them. It reminded me of a hospital with most of its lights out. Artwork seemed to scatter the walls, but it was hard to grasp their form or subject with how fast I was being hauled. Slow down! Why? You want to see all these boring, unfinished pieces? Ask Aaron about it another time. I've got something more interesting for you. There was a curtain in front of us, like a fine red velvet. Genesis slowed down, bringing us to a slower walk. Sorry, we're still not sure how to properly separate our workspaces. Why are there so many rooms? For supplies and bodies. Genesis pushed the curtains open, motioning me with his hands and to enter. Wait, the bodies? Like the women? They have many pieces being worked on at once. Aaron isn't the kind of guy to start working and finish one thing. Their brain is too scattered. Now come on! I walked through the curtains, holding my breath. Until the hallway I entered changed. Everything about it felt darker. The walls, the light, the atmosphere. The air was warm, like fire almost, but it wasn't enough to make me sweat. It was just a touch of discomfort. You holding up, Lionel? If I'm honest, not really. I'm confused, tired, and I had a bad feeling that I wasn't making it out alive. That's normal. We've been out here for 3 days. I stopped walking, mouth agape. 3 days? I have to call someone, let them know I'm alright. Where's my personal items? I need my phone. Easy. Genesis grabbed at my shoulder, causing me to turn towards him. He looked almost sympathetic. If I knew where they were, I'd give them to you. But I don't. We'll take you somewhere nicer that isn't full of shit. And I'll ask one of them what's up. Does that sound nice? I'll get you, like, a beverage and shit, too. Like coffee? Tea? Water? There's not a lot of option, but what drink should I pick? Some tea would be nice. I don't drink, but I'm sure I have some somewhere. It'll probably be black tea. That fine? It's better than nothing. Gotcha. Thanks. Before he could continue blabbing, we stopped in front of a door with a sign on it in a language I don't recognize. The air radiating from the cracks felt cold, at least compared to the rest of the hall. He banged his fist in all four corners of the doorknob before opening it to a completely dark room. Why are you looking at me like that? The hell was that banging for? To make sure the hinges aren't busted. He opened the door and waved me inside. Come on in. I stepped into what looked like a sloppy combination of a light sort of break room meeting a home recording studio. There were posters on all the walls, and right on the table was a cup of tea. How? Welcome in. You're safe in here. Anyone that comes in, I know where they are, 24/6. Saturdays are for the boys, of course. I always invite them over, but I can never get both at once. Try to seduce Erebus all like, Eri, you have a good arm. We should play cornhole and drink beer. Fucker sucks me in the eye. I think he's in love with me. I have no idea who you're talking about. And I'm not here to hear about this. I'm confused at this whole situation. Who these people are, who you are. And frankly, why the hell I'm not freaking out as much as I normally would. You know, I was thinking the same thing. Aaron said something about that. Was surprised and called it the other main reason you're here. Take a seat on the couch. Relax for a bit. Genesis sat at his desk in the corner before digging in his pockets for his cell phone. Was that a slider cell phone? Do you want me to just... I slowly walked to the couch across from the main setup and sat down. It was way too comfortable. Sit here while you make a phone call? It's gonna be quick. Like, I don't know. That's what a drink is for, I guess. How the hell did they even get in here? You had asked me 5 seconds before we entered, and then boom! I'm magic. He went to dialing a number on the slide-out keyboard. I took a sip of my tea, but I was no longer thirsty after a few sips. When was the last time I had anything to drink anyway? Who are you calling? A roommate. Why don't you just bring him to me then, or something? Wouldn't it cut down on time? I like pissing him off. He waited for whoever was on the other end of the line to pick up. And when he started talking, it was in a mischievous tone, of course, but in a language I didn't recognize. I decided to just look around the room, arranged in a somehow orderly mess. What do I examine? I guess I'll look at the couch. The couch was normal, a soft fabric that felt nice to sink into. There was a neutral padded pillow in the middle. I pushed one of them over to the corner, only to find a small dark red speckle in the fabric. I checked over my skin quickly to make sure I didn't have a stray cut that I wouldn't feel. But I was fine. My fingers brushed over the spot, which was dry. Instinctively, I flinched and stood up. Genesis didn't seem to notice. I looked around the room one more time while the man was sitting in his chair with a smirk on his face, unfocused. I found myself checking for signs of any carnage. Was he good at cleaning, or was Genesis different? Then I spotted some, a small patch of red by a carpet behind the couch. This is the quick time bar. Ask fleeting questions, avoid obstacles, or... wait, what? I'm not done reading! Okay, be sure to read the options before the timer. Check the closet. I quickly walked over to the back closet, staring at the door. There was no smell in the room at all. I had now realized. Or was the entirety of Genesis' little area maybe a scent of metal from equipment? But that was it. But here, there was the strongest scent of cleaning supplies. I grabbed for the knob and turned it slowly, as to not make such a noise. There was a person slumped over with his head to the floor, arms positioned awkwardly like a poorly articulated doll. His whole position was so unnatural for a corpse, but he was too still, too quiet to be anything but. There were no visible injuries. None but at his ear, which had dried blood oozing from them, crusting the insides of both his ears and in his hair. Ew. I didn't mean to make a noise, but as soon as I did, Genesis snapped out of his gaze and stared right at me. I'm gonna have to call you back. He put the phone on the table and stood up, slowly making his way over to me. Now, what did I dump the last person in the closet for? Probably as being lazy. How weird. But even weirder that you went around snooping in front of me, like I wouldn't hear. You're good at keeping quiet. But for now, it sounded like the door was locked, even though neither of us moved. I said I offered to play you something, didn't I? He grabbed from one of the guitars lying against the wall. You're not gonna hop out on the promise, are you, Lionel? Despite it being an electric guitar, he hadn't bothered to plug it into an amp. Looked at the door. It wasn't useless to try. Ooh, that's so cool. He started playing, with a simple hum of electric buzz, even with no electricity involved. Other instruments quickly swooped in, but there was no one else playing. A single computer screen in the back was lit up. I found myself frozen in place, staring at his hands, fingers pressing against them, flicking at strings. Sometimes they went to his eyes, which stared back at me just as intensely as I likely stared at him. Yeah! I grabbed my ears to cover them, biting at the inside of my lip. There was a stinging in my head that only grew in intensity with every sound wave, like a virus infecting every nerve in my system. Genesis seemed happy with himself in my pain, and I dropped to my knees. The pain was growing more intense the longer he played. A pain which fluttered through every bone, muscle, and organ until they too felt like they were vibrating. One that wrapped itself around and chokes out your insides so you're left unable to breathe. I was dry heaving through the song, tears in my eyes, while sound waves wriggled through my veins like worms. It was becoming unbearable. Please. Huh? He didn't stop. My fingers were being coated in blood that poured from my ears. Please, make it stop. Is that what you want, Lionel? All I could do was nod. I can make the pain go away. And so he impales me, driving the end of the guitar into my stomach and lifting me up into the air. The music continued and was more painful than the pain in my torso, continuing to gnaw at my senses until they were numb. And then the music stopped. If I could, I would cry tears of joy. All I could do was feel myself fade into nothingness. He kept his promise, and I had never been so grateful. What? Oh, that was cool. Oh my god. Anyway, thank you guys so much for playing. That was the demo for Art Without Love. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to play the game for yourself, link to it is in the description below. And hey, I hope you have a lovely rest of the evening. This is Lionel, signing off. Ciao.